Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
We're doing something a little different today. All of our shows, primary shows that we're going to do in the next 3 hours on many of these stations, will be from the exact same day, November 17th, 1957. We start off with an episode of Indictment, and it's a story of a dead woman in Central Park, claimed to be based on the files of Eleazar Lipsky, an assistant district attorney of New York. We'll get into more of that a little later. But right now, we want to thank you for joining us on this Sure Happy It's Thursday. This is the 17th day of November, 321st day of 2022. And we have 44 days till we get to 2023. Congress holds its first session in Washington on this date in 1800. National Rifle Association granted a charter by the state of New York in 1871. The Russian Social Democrat Labor Party split into two groups in 1903, the Bolsheviks, Russian for majority, and the Mensheviks, the Russian for minority. Screen Actors Guild implemented an anti-communist loyalty oath in 1947. 1962, President Kennedy dedicated Dulles International Airport, serving the Washington, D.C. area. On this date in 1967, acting on optimistic reports he was given on November 13th, President Johnson told the nation, while much remained to be done, we are inflicting greater losses than we're taking. We're making progress.
We know that most people's intentions are good. We don't question their motives. We've never said they're unpatriotic, although they say some pretty ugly things about us. We believe very strongly in preserving the right to differ in this country and the right to dissent. And if I have done a good job of anything since I've been president, is to ensure that there are plenty of dissenters.
He did do that. The war did not get resolved during his administration. It, in fact, was President Nixon that helped end the war in Vietnam. Negotiators from the Soviet Union and the U.S. met in Helsinki on this date in 1969 to begin SALT I negotiations aimed at limiting the number of strategic weapons on both sides. SALT was the Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty. In 1970, Lieutenant William Calley went on trial for the My Lai massacre in the Vietnam War. In 1970, Douglas Engelbart received the patent for the first computer mouse. And in 1973, in Orlando, Florida, President Nixon told 400 Associated Press managing editors that he was not a crook.
I made a lot of money. I made $250,000 from a book and the serial rights, which many of you were good enough to purchase also. In the practice of law, and I'm not claiming I was worth it, but apparently former vice presidents or presidents are worth a great deal to law firms, and I did work pretty hard. But also in that period, I earned between $100,000 and $250,000 every year. So that when I, in 1968, decided to become a candidate for president, I decided to clean the decks and to put everything in real estate. I sold all my stock for $300,000. That's all I own. I sold my apartment in New York for $300,000. I'm using rough figures here. And I had $100,000 coming to me from the law firm. And so that's where the money came from. Let me just say this, and I want to say this to the television audience. I made my mistakes, but in all of my years of public life, I have never profited from public service. I've earned every cent. And in all of my years of public life, I have never obstructed justice. And I think, too, that I can say that in my years of public life, that I welcome this kind of examination, because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
Less than a year later, President Nixon would resign under the specter of being removed from office by impeachment. Kmart announced they were buying Sears Roebuck and Company on this date in 2004 for $11 billion, named the newly merged company Sears Holdings Company. Now, Sears Holdings closed after bankruptcy in 2019. Its holdings were spun off. Kmart, part of a privately held company. Very few stores of either remain. 2013, a rare late-season tornado outbreak struck the Midwest, Illinois, and Indiana, the most affected. Tornado reports as far north as Lower Michigan. In all, around 6 dozen tornadoes touched down in about an 11-hour time period, including several EF3 and EF4 tornadoes. The first case, a known case of COVID-19 on this date in 2019, it was traced to a 55-year-old man who had visited a wet market in Wuhan. Supposedly bat stuff. I don't know that all of that is 100% accurate. I can tell you, passing away on this date in history, Esther Roll from Good Times, the man who sang about that sweet soul music, Arthur Conley, and country singer Don Gibson. Born on this date, director Lee Strasberg, Rock Hudson, fine actor, and singer-actor Dean Paul Martin. You remember Sundown, I'll Never Take Care, and The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, Gordon Lightfoot, 84 today. Film director Martin Scorsese is 80. From Paper Lion and American Gigolo, Lauren Hutton, 79. You remember him as Louie in Taxi and also with Arnold in Twins. Danny DeVito, 78. Saturday Night Live producer Lorne Michaels, 78. Howard Dean, 74 today.
We're going to South Carolina and Oklahoma and Arizona and North Dakota and New Mexico. And we're going to California and Texas and New York. And we're going to South Dakota and Oregon and Washington and Michigan. And then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House. Yeah!
Okay, the rest of it was typical political talk. But that scream at the end just turned a lot of people off. Howard Dean, 74 today. From News Radio and Office Space, Stephen Root is 71. Scarface and the Color of Money, Mary Elizabeth Mastriantonio is 64 today. RuPaul, who is a quite handsome man, and he's an okay dame when he dresses up. RuPaul, 62. Model actress Daisy Fuentes is 56. From Dexter and Arrow, David Ramsey is 51. From SVU, Diane Neal is 46. From The Notebook and Mean Girls, Rachel McAdams is 42. Pro wrestler and the current Ring of Honor women's champion, Mercedes Martinez, 42. From Game of Thrones, Harry Lloyd is 39. And Beyonce's cousin, Shanika Knowles, is 32. Those just a few of the people who celebrate the 17th day of November as their birthday. Now, if this happens to be your birthday...
Hi, we're the Four Freshmen, and we just want to say, Happy birthday to you!
We're going back to 65 years ago, November 17th, 1957, an episode of Indictment and the dead woman discovered in Central Park. I'm Wyatt Cox. Thank you so much for spending part of your Thursday with us here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station. Thanks for tuning into Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. A tip of the hat to my collector friends who pointed to me at a lengthy air check of radio station WROW in the Albany area going back to this date in 1957. And you're going to hear the programs pretty much as they aired. Of course, we removed any tobacco advertising, but that isn't what we heard in this hour. In these 3 hours, we heard the FBI in Peace and War, Indictment, and Gunsmoke. And you will hear all of those shows. What you will not hear is Rosemary Clooney singing for Ford, a 6 o'clock newscast for WROW's, with WROW's Dan Nelson, or the local ads. But we're going to let you hear this, and it's believed that the late Pat Rispol, who lived in the WROW listening area near Albany, he had recorded on his own personal reel-to-reel recorder many of the shows that exist in the late 50s. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, Gunsmoke, Suspense, and a lot of baseball games from that period. He traded his recordings heavily with other old-time radio fans, so they survived the ebbs and flows of collecting interest among collectors since he passed. But I have to tell you that it is a delight to tell you about this, and so we tip our hat to Mr. Pat Rispol, a great collector who has gone on to his reward. Now, on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, the first of 3 shows from this collection from this date, November 17th, 1957, 65 years ago today, a little-known show, Indictment.
Dolores trusted me, I trusted her. Hey, you think no? You look at me and you're saying in your mind, no, Reina, Lopez, Sanchez, Cortez, no, these people, they extranjeros, foreigners, they're not like me, the great McCormick. No, they're too hot-blooded and jealous to trust so, to love so. See, but you are wrong. We are like you, as you, all kinds. We're good, bad, hating, and loving. Now, why do you put me in a pigeonhole in your mind that says murderer?
Indictment, a formal written charge of crime as the basis for trial of the accused. Indictment. The drama you're about to hear is from New York City and is based on stories of the criminal law, with authentic procedures as detailed by Eleazar Lipsky, former Assistant District Attorney of New York. It is the Assistant District Attorney who directs criminal investigations, assembles facts and witnesses, builds the case to a just indictment.
Take it easy, boy. Easy now. Hey, you act like you've never been in the park before. Oh, now listen, Mutzo, will you stop yanking on the leash? Will you take it easy? Oh, gee. All right. Come here. Okay, so there are no cops around. Look, I'll take the leash off, okay? Now take it easy. There, go ahead. Bring yourself ragged. Boy, like a pup. A crazy pup. Oh, now what's he got? Hey, what do you got, boy? Squirrel? Come on, go get him. Get him, boy. Oh, you crazy dog. Look, I don't want no old shoe. You keep it. Now what? Oh, you want to show me something, huh? You found something. No, all right, now, easy on the pants. All right already, now. What do you... Oh, gee. Come on, get away. Get away from her, huh? Stay, sit. Oh, she's dead. Good dog, sit. Police! Hey, you kids! Hey, you! Baseball! Go over to the avenue! Get the cops! Hey, the squad car! Stay back! Get the cops!
McCormick.
Ed, Tom Russo. On the girl in Central Park yesterday.
Yeah, Tom.
I'm up at the 28th. I think we've got something coming up.
Do you know who she is?
They've got a fella named Reyna. R-E-Y-N-A. Peter Reyna. Think she might be his wife, Dolores. Been missing 2 days.
All right, take him over to the mortuary. I'll meet you there.
He came in with another girl, Ed. One Rita Morales.
Girlfriend?
Wife's cousin.
Bring them both. Let them both view the body.
Pobrecita, mi mujer, mi bebé. Dolores?
Was his wife?
Dolores.
Uh-huh. Mr. Reyna.
No, I mean, en este momento terrible. No, por favor, no.
He says, not now, senor, please. This terrible time. Let me talk to him. Let me answer whatever there may be, questions.
You'll talk for him.
For now, yes, please.
I'm sorry, Miss Morales. I want to talk to you a little later, but for now, I don't think you can answer the question I want to ask him.
I am sure.
You are? All right. Why did he kill her?
There is a difference, a great big difference in Vicks medicated cough drops. There is a difference, a great big difference. Get relief with every single drop.
Yes, there is a big difference in Vicks medicated cough drops. The medication makes the difference. Only Vicks cough drops are medicated with the exclusive throat-soothing ingredients of Vicks Vapor Rub. 2 delicious flavors, Vicks Regular and new Wild Cherry. Next time your throat feels raw and irritated from coughs due to colds, remember,
there is a difference, a great big difference in Vicks medicated cough drops.
The medication makes the difference.
Yes, the medication makes the difference.
And for a stuffy nose, just 1 whiff with a Vicks inhaler, and that miserable feeling of a stuffy nose goes in seconds. Use it anywhere, anytime. Vicks inhaler. All right, you worked that night at this hotel banquet as a waiter for the caterer.
From 7 to midnight. You can check this.
We will. Where did you go after work?
Home. To my house. She was gone.
Your wife?
Yes, but I was not worried. Not yet then.
Mm-hmm. Go on.
Well, I was not worried because often when I work nights, she goes dancing. Went dancing. Roseland.
Your wife went dancing at Roseland alone?
Often, yes. Why not?
You tell us.
Well, it's not like we had kids or anything. Why keep a pretty girl, a young wife in prison, cooped up in the house?
You trusted her?
Of course. Roseland, such places like that, they are muy respectable.
Very respectable? Why?
Well, they are for people who only want to go dancing. I know. I went there once. Strangers to dance with strangers. Yes, it's true. But the girls do not make the dates. There are rules. All is proper. The management is carefully watched.
Mm-hmm. Go on.
And which is better, Mr. McCormick? To suspect and to forbid, or to trust and allow?
And you trusted her?
I trusted her. She trusted me. You think no?
Go on with your story.
You look at me and you're saying... A Reina, a Lopez, a Sanchez, a Cortez. No, these people are extranjeros, foreigners. They are not like me. They are too hot-blooded and jealous to trust, to love so.
Go on with your story.
See, but you are wrong, see? We are like you. We are all kinds, good, bad, hating, and trusting. Now, why do you put me in a pigeonhole in your mind? It was extremely respectable.
Get on with your story. What did you do when you found your wife wasn't at home?
I went to bed to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Next morning?
To see if Dolores stayed with Rita Morales.
She often do that?
Sometimes, after dancing together.
She ever call and tell you?
There's no phone. Then I begin to worry. Rita worries. We report her to the police, missing.
That's right, Mr. McCormick. It's on the record.
All right. And would I do this if I had done the terrible thing you say?
If you didn't kill your wife, go on, prove it. Prove to me you didn't.
I did not. No, it's as simple as that.
Were you in Central Park last night?
No. The last time I am at the park, in the summer, a long time ago.
Were you ever near that spot?
Spot?
Yeah.
Oh, where? No, never.
Reyna, I'm going to give you a break. Would you mind if we sent your clothes to the laboratory for testing?
These clothes for testing?
For blood and such. And the rest of your suits at home?
Do you have this right?
It's for your own benefit, Reyna. If you're not guilty, finding them clean will be in your favor.
There. My keys. Take them all. These two.
These are all the clothes you have?
Yes. No.
Oh?
In my locker at the caterer's is my uniform and a pair of sports slacks. Nothing else. With my home keys, you have the keys to my locker. You have all.
So, innocent, guilty? Stay tuned. We'll figure it out. From November 17th, 1957, Indictment on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. The news from 65 years ago is next. Thanks for tuning in on this Thursday to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station. An episode of Indictment as it was originally broadcast on Sunday, November 17th, 1957. In the news, just after 5 o'clock, I believe, is what I came up with Eastern Time. In the newspapers of that Sunday, 65 years ago, these were some of the headlines. The Eisenhower administration will lay before Adlai Stevenson Monday its sweeping and still tentative plans for converting Western Europe's defenses to the age of nuclear rockets. Administration officials said there are some of the preliminary ideas that Secretary of State John Foster Dulles may discuss with the Democrat Party leader in the first of a series of bipartisan planning sessions. Urgent efforts by the Atlantic Pact's Permanent Council to settle the French dispute with the United States and Britain ended in at least temporary failure. Difficulties between the Big Three members threaten the Western Alliance. The council, assembled by the Pact's Belgian Secretary General Paul H. Spack, adjourned after thrashing out the situation and will not meet again until next week, probably Wednesday. An Air Force feasibility study of how nuclear explosions might be tested out in space sharpened interest in the quest for something that can destroy a ballistic missile in flight. Colonel McPherson Morgan, head of a 16-man scientific team at Kirkland Air Force Base, New Mexico, said his unit was exploring the nature of nuclear blasts in airless space. It has been suggested that such blasts could destroy missiles in flight. President Eisenhower called his defense secretary to the vacation White House in Augusta, Georgia, for an important meeting next week on the new defense budget, which will involve a very considerable increase in federal spending. Sputnik 2 is of such durable material, fragments of it may return to Earth. That, according to Soviet scientist Kirill Stankievich, in a lecture reported in the press today, saying parts of it may be recovered. The study of such fragments, if recovered, would provide valuable scientific data. He did not say when he expected Sputnik 2 to begin its slide to Earth. Sports, Don Meredith, Southern Methodist University's mighty sophomore bomber, passed for a tremendous 231 yards and 2 touchdowns and scored 2 himself in a 27-22 victory over Arkansas. And those some of the day's top news stories as reported in the newspapers of Sunday, November 17th, 1957, on your radio Indictment, which continues now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
All right, let's go on. You went directly home from the banquet.
Yes.
You found your wife missing.
I went to sleep. I woke up. I went to Rita's. We went to the police.
Is there anything going on between you and Rita?
How do you mean?
You know. Come on. No. How does Rita feel about you?
There is nothing between us. Nothing. That's a terrible thing for a gentleman like you to say.
All right, just one more question for now.
And then I go.
You'll sit in that room to think the whole thing over a while, sure. But for now, just one question. You know the question, Raina.
I know I have answered all the questions with the truth.
All right, work on this one then. Why did you kill your wife? Not going to work, is it, Ed? Oh, I don't know. I'll keep throwing it at him for his reactions. Think he did it? He could have. When are they going to have those tests ready? Give him time. He had you right, though, didn't he? Oh, you pegging him as typical.
pigeonholing.
All right. I'll ask you. Don't you think he's a little too atypical, a little too broad-minded for an older man with a younger wife? A waltz-me-around-again nightlifer? She didn't sway dreamily in the arms of girls at those dime-a-dance dives, did she? No matter how respectable they may have looked to him. Okay, you tell me.
And you think he killed her?
Tom, how would I know? I wasn't there. I'm suspending judgment pending the ME's report and the tests on those garments. Maybe he's telling the truth, maybe not. I'll keep trying to shake him up until I'm convinced one way or the other.
Well, I get the same thing from the girl, Ed, and from relatives and neighbors, too. If anything, Rita was, well, aloof from Rena. Her friend was her cousin, Dolores. And Rita came out with the same pitch. Sure, Dolores liked to live it up, but Rita says Rena happens to be a man in love with his wife and in trust with her. In trust, she says.
Yeah, great place to show your respect for your husband. Dance halls while the guy's working to pay for your fun.
Well, as for that, Rita says...
All right, Tom.
Well, Rita says a girl's safer on a dance floor than in a subway, and farther off from strange men. And she's got something there, Ed. Seriously. Are you going to hold Rena?
As a material witness, if nothing else, certainly.
Okay. I'm inclined to believe his story.
Well, that's your privilege, Tom. It doesn't sound right to me.
Special Bureau, Russo.
28 Squad Detectives. Mr. McCormick there? Is that Central Park homicide?
Right here. You want to talk to him?
No, we're coming down. Guy just walked in. Fellow named Dave Campbell. Just walked in and confessed. Be right down.
From 65 years ago, November 17th, 1957, Indictment. On this Thursday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now, I want to repeat what I said earlier here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. In our next 2 hours, we will be having shows from November 17th, 1957, Gunsmoke, and the FBI in Peace and War. All from this very large air check that we were able to get from WROW from November 17th, 1957. Tomorrow, though, we will have for our Friday edition, Brian Donlevy, Dangerous Assignment, November 28, 1952, 70 years ago, Memory Chain in Munich. Steve Mitchell investigating transmission of secret information through Munich. His investigation leads him to the Alps. That's coming up on Friday's Classic Radio Theater, but let's wrap up this Thursday hour with a conclusion of Indictment, 65 years ago, November 17th, 1957.
What'd y'all check my clothes for?
For tests.
How's that, mister?
Tests for blood, body fluids.
Oh, you find blood, all right. I done it. I've been telling you.
Now, let me get this straight now.
Yeah.
You met her at Roseland. You dated her.
That's right.
You rode around in taxis.
Rode all around, that's right.
You made the rounds.
Bar after bar, lots of bars, that's right. And I remember clear as day. Last thing was we had Boilermakers. 3, 4 Boilermakers. A little old place on 125th, down near the railroad, you know.
You both had Boilermakers.
Oh, yes, sir. Bourbon Boilermakers it was.
What time was that?
I'll see. Last I remember it was about 2 a.m. in the morning.
2 a.m. All right, then what?
Why, then over to the park. Kind of loving it up.
Did the girl offer any resistance?
Oh, well, scratch me some. Right here, you see? I must have got mad. Drunk. I didn't know what I was doing. Drunk. Didn't know what I was doing.
Go on.
I just don't remember. But I done it, that's for sure. I know I done it. And I ought to go to the chair. I deserve it. I sure do.
Okay, Campbell, what did you do with the knife you killed her with?
Well, I throwed it down the sewer. I don't remember where. Just the sewer.
Was she still alive when you dragged her from the park bench into the brush?
Oh, yes, sir. She come with me from the bench willingly.
But she was drunk.
Oh, boy. Drunk on the hoot owl, uh-huh. And me too, boy.
Campbell, what did you do with the watch and rosary?
Well, I swapped the watch in for drinks next night. What's a rosary?
String of beads with a crucifix attached.
Oh, sure. I throw it in the brush. I ought to get the chair. Well, what's them papers, boss? You gonna sign me over for the jailhouse?
These are reports from the medical examiner and the police laboratory. And you, Campbell, you're a liar. You're a sick, infantile, exhibitionistic, masochistic liar.
No, sir, I've done it. I
She
tell
was
you.
drunk. The autopsy showed no alcohol in her stomach or brain.
Now, wait a minute. What's the matter?
You said you threw your knife away, but she was strangled. You said you dragged her from a bench. There isn't a bench within a half a mile of where she was found.
And she had no watch, and a rosary was still clutched in her hand.
But I was there. I done it. I swear. That's the truth. And I'm going to get the chair.
You're going to get 90 days for vagrancy and run out of town. That's all you're going to get. Sergeant, take him away.
So, leaves us with Rayna.
Nope.
What?
Some reports. Read them and weep.
What? What reports?
Police lab. Went over every garment he owns. Trouser cuffs, interstices of his shoe uppers, jacket pockets, everything. Not a molecule of anything remotely resembling the earth or the vegetation anywhere near the spot marked X in Central Park. As far as we can prove, he was telling the truth. He was never there.
Turn him loose?
No! McCormick.
Ed, Tom Russo.
What have you got, Tom?
Rayna on a skewer. I picked up Rita Morales in a pawn shop, Ed, trying to raise some money on a man's suit.
Rayna's.
Traced the label clear back to her sales slip. Rayna.
Get it over to the lab and come in. Oh, wait a minute, Tom.
Yeah?
Pick up the doorman from the Roseland. After the lab's gone over the suit, we'll put it on Rayna and see if the doorman remembers him. All right, Rayna, now. Why'd you do it?
I did not do it.
The doorman says you picked your wife up at 1 a.m.
Many men picked up many women that night at that place. It's wrong.
Rita had the suit you wore that night in her closet. You swore we had all your clothes.
I had forgotten. It was a long time ago. It's last summer, I think.
You said there was nothing between you. What were your clothes doing in her closet?
Perhaps my wife gave them to her for the poor.
Rayna,
Senor?
you'd better confess.
Never. No, not even if you beat the lies out of me.
Not that I need a confession. I have the truth.
The truth I have told you. I did not kill Dolores.
You did.
No.
Rayna, this is a report on what was found in your trouser cuffs.
I'm not interested. The truth
is the microscope and the spectroscope and botanical experts from New York colleges and 3 Arboretum saw it. That you were there that night.
Never in my life was I there.
You stand by that statement?
It is the truth.
I read you this. Sample submitted is identified as the seeds of an alpine grass. Pleuropogon sabinii.
Seeds, grass, these are everywhere.
Pleuropogon sabinii. Found only on Melville Island within the Arctic Circle.
Then it could not...
Shut up! Specimens have been cultivated only in Central Park Arboretum. And only one path of said grass genus is known to have reseeded. Wild. In one certain area. Namely, Rayna, where you murdered your wife.
This is proof? No, I laugh. See, I scorn. Seeds a man can pick up anywhere. Anytime.
I read further. Pleuropogon sabinii is unique in that it seeds during only 2 days in this climate and on no others. The second of those 2 days, Rayna, was the day you dragged Dolores into the park and strangled her. What do you say, Rayna? Well? All right, you don't have to say a word then. The lies you've told already are enough. That you went straight home, a lie. That you never went to Roseland to pick her up, a lie. That we had all your clothes, a lie. That you'd never, repeat, never have been in that part of Central Park, a lie. Lies at every crucial point, crying out guilty knowledge.
Well, you have no witnesses. Nobody.
I have 45, and they add up to one. Murder one. And an indictment. All right, Rayner, why? Was it Rita?
Rita, will you keep her name out?
Detective Russo, call in a stenographer.
Where do you get 45 witnesses, Ed? I make it a half dozen. A doorman, Rita, pawnbroker, medical examiner, a couple of botanists.
Plus 11 samples of Central Park soil, identical with the soil where Dolores was found. And on Rayner's trouser knees.
The seeds. I see, yeah.
28 seeds of pluripogan sabini. Seeds of doubt, death. Pogon. Pluripogan sabini. Common name, northern catchgrass. Family Polygonum aviculaire. It says here. Common name, knotgrass.
Knot?
K-N-O-T. As in hangman's. The chair will do just as well. The story you just heard was drawn from New York City and based on stories of the criminal law as detailed by Eleazar Lipsky, former assistant district attorney. The names of all persons and places were changed. Indictment is written by Alan Sloan, produced by Nathan Kroll, and directed by Paul Roberts. Nat Polan is starred as Edward McCormick. Jack Arthur is heard as Tom Russo. The Master was played by Sam Raskin. Peter Rayner by Mario Alcalde. Rita Morales by Bryna Rayburn. Dave Campbell by Frank Behrens. Have you ever picked up the newspaper and read about some heroic person who saved someone's life? And haven't you sometimes thought to yourself, wouldn't it be wonderful if I could have saved somebody's life someday? Well, the chance for you to be a hero and have your name in the paper as a lifesaver may never come. But still, you can help save a life, not once, but often. What's more, there's no risk to this kind of life-saving. I'm talking about the life you can save by giving a pint of blood. Whole blood and blood plasma administered on the battlefield or in hospitals has saved thousands upon thousands of lives. There's an ever-continuing need for blood for the manufacture of gamma globulin, which does so much to combat measles and chickenpox. But even more blood is needed for future reserves. Every city must have a large supply on hand at all times, not only for the uses I've just mentioned, but in case of a major disaster or an enemy attack. So do your life-saving right now. Call your local Red Cross chapter or your nearest hospital blood bank and make an appointment to give blood. Do it regularly. Listen next week at this same time for another Indictment. Now stay tuned for Gunsmoke, which follows immediately over most of these same stations. Tonight, Mitch Miller plays host to Max Schulman on the CBS radio network.
Indictment aired on CBS Sundays at 5:05 from January of 1956 until January of 1959, according to John Dunning and his Encyclopedia of Old-Time Radio, which, by the way, I have links so that you can acquire a copy, and it's huge and it's not inexpensive, but you can get that over at classicradio.stream. Also, the show, a fictionalized account of real-life events is gathered and experienced by a former New York City Assistant District Attorney, Eleazar Lipsky. He served in the 1940s, continued on to a successful private practice law career, most known by the public as a successful novelist. His most famous work, the story that was adapted to become the movie Kiss of Death in 1947 with Victor Mature. Mature received an Academy Award nomination. Alan Sloan wrote the shows, a veteran best known for The Big Story on radio and TV, and the program known for employing an integrated cast that represented the ethnic diversity of the characters in the story and the city. Indictment. 65 years ago today, November 17, 1957, here on Classic Radio Theater. In our next 2 hours, which, by the way, if your station doesn't carry them, you can get them at classicradio.stream. We'll have an episode of Gunsmoke from that same date, and the FBI in Peace and War, both heard on November 17th, 1957, on CBS. Visit our webpage, classicradio.stream. Stream our shows, learn more about classic radio collecting. You can contact me, and if you like what we do here, you can buy me a coffee, and that helps us expand our reach and expand our classic radio collection. There are lots out there to be had, and we try to bring you the best. Thank this station, support their advertisers, and as always, have a great Thursday. And tell your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.